Development Authority meeting to order. And I think we should take a roll call, or no, we should take
Yes, sir.
attendance.
Commissioner Otis Rosen,
Here.
Commissioner Kaiser,
Here.
Commissioner Kamish,
Here.
Commissioner Adams,
Here.
Commissioner Cummings,
Here.
Commissioner Budashevsky,
Here.
Commissioner Idebo.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, we have the minutes from our last EDA meeting, looking for approval of those minutes from January 2nd, 2024. Commissioner Adams.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from January 2nd.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Tracy?
I will second that.
Thank you. All those in, no, what do I say? We'll do a roll call.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Kaiser,
Aye.
Commissioner Kamish,
Aye.
Commissioner Adams,
Aye.
Commissioner Cummings,
Aye.
Commissioner Budashevsky,
Aye.
Commissioner Idebo,
Aye.
Commissioner Otis Rosen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, so now we have our 2024 work plan discussion. John, I'll let you take that.
Thank you, Mr. President and Commissioners. I'm going to minimize this window because the slides, as you're used to, I kind of packed them full. So tonight the purpose is mainly to kind of go over some of the new things that I think staff needs some direction on before we actually present the proposed 2024 EDA work program to you at your next meeting, which should be March 19th. So, but before we get into that, I wanted to kind of just go over a summary of the various kind of new or newer EDA initiatives that began after around 2016. And the reason that matters is for the 15 years or so prior to that, and definitely the 10 years prior to that, the EDA's focus was on almost, I don't want to call it crisis mode, but responding to the surge in foreclosures in the 2007 to 2009 period, and then the subsequent acquiring and demolishing kind of the worst of the worst and selling those lots for new construction. By 2016, we had kind of sold all the lots. And so the EDA board said, I'm paraphrasing, but our neighborhoods are pretty stable now. We dealt with the crisis. We dealt with, selling the lots into the recovery and getting new homes built on those vacant lots. But what we haven't been spending a lot of time or money on are our commercial areas. Because I think at the time, and maybe still today, the board members consistently heard, I love my neighborhood, but I don't like the way our commercial areas look, or things like of that sort of nature. So the EDA gave staff direction to start doing other things. Now that at that point the residential foreclosure crisis in Crystal had sort of been dealt with. So this is a list, and think of these things as cumulative, apart from the big reconstruction projects that the EDA either led, like the Bass Lake Road Streetscape, or contributed financially to, such as Becker Park. But all the other things are things that are cumulative. So they weren't one-offs. We're still doing these various things. And so this is like a cumulative list. So I just want to pause there and give you all a chance to absorb this a little bit as context for what we're talking about now for 2024 is obviously continuing to do these things. And because of the additional budgetary authority that has been approved for 2024, kind of some, I don't want to call them big things necessarily, but bigger things than the kind of stuff you see on this list. Oops. Okay. So one thing I need to mention is the facade enhancement incentive program. We have had 3 projects that have taken advantage of that in the last 2 years: Elysian Playhouse, B&R Auto Repair, and the Wine Thief and Ale Jail. It's a no-interest deferred forgivable loan for up to half of the project cost. We exhausted the 2022 Hennepin County Award by the end of 2023. However, in late '23, they did award in another $25,000, which is available now in 2024. Before that, as we were preparing the 2024 budget, we did put in $40,000 under what's called awards. So, staff's preference is basically to say, well, the Hennepin County funding is sufficient for this purpose. We would like to repurpose the $40,000 for something else, or just not spend it and let it add to the EDA fund balance. So we'll talk more about the entrance monument sign idea towards the end of the presentation, but I just wanted to put it out there that with that facade grant from the county, we could continue the program in 2024 without using the money that we had budgeted for it, which does provide some options and some opportunities for you. So, beautification and branding. Continuing the planter boxes, we now have 30 of them. We're going to place them in basically the same locations that they have been placed. In recent years, the number of planting locations is the red numbering on the map to your right. There are also 7 of those older concrete planter bowls that you may have seen. We do the same thing with them. So we're going to continue doing that, but this year, again, thanks to your increase in EDA budget, we will be able to hire a watering contractor to do at least weekly watering and additional waterings if we get a real dry spell. We're still getting quotes, but the estimated cost would be $5,000 for the season. So the benefit of that is we have been relying on the business owners close to these boxes to water them. Some of them have been pretty good about it, but most of them have not. And we spend too much money on these flowers every year out of the EDA budget for them to wilt. So that's why we want to do the watering contract, and we had talked about this during the budget discussions last year. So I think you're all familiar with this, but I just wanted to put it out there that we do have a dollar figure now of where we think it's going to be, and that it is within the budget. Another thing we're continuing is the litter cleanups with STS along kind of our main commercial corridors in the city. But this year, because of this non-winter winter we've had, we're actually going to get them out there hopefully the first weekend of March. And that basically extends the contract period by a month, and the additional cost will be $1,200. And again, we do have sufficient funds in the EDA budget to accommodate that lengthening of the litter cleanup season. Here's something that is new in 2024, but we have talked about it before. So we're proposing to wrap those traffic signal control cabinets that you've seen in Crystal, are in Crystal, and you've probably seen them wrapped in other cities. We did get 2 different quotes with comparable or roughly comparable products. Traffic wraps at $3,500 per cabinet, and Stratus came in at $2,100. We have enough in the budget where we could do 6 with traffic wraps or 10 with Stratus. And on the map to your right, I've highlighted priorities 1 and 2. That's 10 cabinets. That's what we could do with Stratus. So staff would intend to select Stratus, and because it's a contract under $25,000, you don't actually need to vote on it. The city manager or the executive director can sign that contract. But the main thing we want to talk with you tonight is, in addition to kind of checking in on proceeding with this, is about the artwork. And that's kind of at the bottom in bold type. So I think the first question is, do you want to do the same artwork on all 10 cabinets for consistency across the city? Or do you want to allow for different artwork in different locations? And we might do, groups. We might do one thing for the 3 boxes on Douglas, and maybe put the Cub one in that box too, and then that bucket, and then the 6 up around downtown Crystal, around the Target store and the commercial area up there. Those could be all one, but maybe different from the others. So that's one question. And then among the artwork questions, is a pretty easy one to do, which we could design in-house, is just do the city flag or the city logo, if you want to use this as a way to brand the city. The other possibilities, we could try to grab some public domain artwork, a classic or classics, and use those. That we would have to be able to use without any copyright issues. And then, or we could solicit original artwork from artists. And we haven't given a lot of thought to that yet because we haven't had this initial conversation. But, there again, we could cluster the cabinets. We could say, okay, we want one proposal for the 6 cabinets up around downtown Crystal by the Target store. And then we want a different proposal for the 3 cabinets on Douglas and the one over by Cub or something like that. Or we could ask for proposals for all 10 different artworks, works of art for all 10. With that, we might have to be prepared to pay some kind of a, I don't know if commission is the right word, but something basically where we would buy the rights to use the artwork. But this is mainly, would be sold to the artist as a way to promote their own artwork in a public space. So I guess I don't really have an opinion. I would like to pause there and see if there's any discussion among the board members.
Commissioner Adams?
So I like the branding. However, I'd like to see it done in conjunction with some additional artwork. I mean, I don't want to just see the same logo and flag on every one. I think that would get a little boring. And I don't know if we can do some solicitation for some local artists, I think that'd be fantastic. And maybe use the public domain artwork kind of as a fallback. But I think it would be fun to kind of have a little bit of branding going on and have different looks in different places. And I don't know, maybe there's some artwork specific to the location that can kind of tie it in as well. So those are my initial thoughts.
Commissioner Kaiser?
How durable are these? Do they last more than one season, or?
Yeah, that's a good question, and the warrant, it's a 1-year warranty, which is typical for this sort of thing, but they usually last many years longer than that. So I would say 5 to 10 years. It's going to depend to some extent on the colors. Some colors resist sunlight better than others, or UV or whatever. It also depends on the location, the way the cabinet faces, that sort of thing. But no, I think 5 to 10 years would be a reasonable guess.
And one other question, what is Stratus? Is that a company name or?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Commissioner Idbo has his hand raised.
Oh, Commissioner Idbo.
Hello. I just was wondering, one, I remember 10 years ago, Minneapolis did this, right? They chose the commissioned art route. And I think they did it where it was essentially people from that neighborhood. You know, they figured there were enough artists in the neighborhood would submit something. I don't remember exactly how they decided and things like that. But I think it would be worth looking into maybe some lesson learned from them. Obviously, it was a lot more cabinets. But I personally would really prefer the original artwork submission, just because I think that's kind of where this would shine, right? Is like we're adding art to the city. We're spicing it up. We're allowing people from our community to share their perspective in a public place. So I would certainly prefer the original artwork way, and probably looking at what other communities have done and trying to learn some lessons from that.
Commissioner Budiszewski.
Is it possible to involve our commissions in some way in this process? I mean, either have them way of like advertising them or promoting them or getting them involved in the actual design of it, maybe give each one a cabinet someplace and, you know, put together a design per commission. I don't know, maybe, the EI commission might want to direct some of this, who knows? Maybe we can get them involved, kind of something different for them to do for the summer, you know? That's my thought.
John?
If I'm kind of pulling all these ideas I'm hearing together, one of the options would be to provide the city's flag and logo to the artist as, see if you can incorporate these into your design in some way, right? The circle and star logo, without the word City of Crystal, but just the circle and star logo is a work of art in and of itself. I frankly think our flag is too, but certainly our circle and star is. That they could use that in their artwork. So I think that's something we could put in sort of the RFP from the artists. The other part of it would be we could identify particular locations. So for example, the one at Sherburne and Bass Lake Road, which is right at the northwest corner of Becker Park, we could say, give some like theme ideas about, you know, this is kind of a parks theme, recreation theme. And then we bring the ideas back to you, and if you wanted to, at that point, you could say, I'd like the Park Commission to comment on this before we approve it, or something like that. So if you wanted to involve the commissions, I think I'd want you to see the submissions first and decide then if you feel it should go to a commission. As far as the IDC commission, we have our retail areas of Crystal. I've become known, this was in the History of Crystal video, I think, you know, this is a place for, you know, startup businesses, many of them owned by people of color, women, and recent immigrants to this country. For they can get a start and they can build a business and build family wealth. And that's a very important thing about Crystal. There's a story to tell there that could be told in art in some way, about where people came from, or things like that. So I think there are opportunities, and maybe staff can, we have to spend some time, obviously, figuring out what these suggested themes are, but that would be one. And then again, after you see what comes out of this process, you could ask the IDC to take a look at them before you make a final decision. And there might be other commissions. I can't think if planning would have a role, but there may be locations that are more appropriate for planning to say something. So,
Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, like the planning commission could have like hammer and nails or something like that, you know?
Bunch of documents.
Documents, yeah, there we go. Parking spots, you know, right?
Oh, boy.
a variance resolution,
Yeah.
right?
Commissioner Kaiser?
I like the idea of involving the commissions, but that is also putting a fair amount of pressure on them to come up with something. I think maybe put it out there and see if they want to tackle it or approve it at the end of it. I just don't want to put pressure on the commissions. And I really like the idea of opening it up to local artists to submit stuff. Incorporate the city logo, always a great idea, and see what they come up with.
Commissioner Cummings?
I would just add, like, I think we touched on this, but like, the themes could be different areas of the city. You know, like, you could do like the airport at one part, or, you know, the town center, or other parts of the city that would just, you know, we don't have like a skyline or anything, but something like that, you know, that's kind of like things that are recognizable in that area of the city, or it could even just be like the map of the city painted in a cool way or something like that, or that part of the city. So something to make it just maybe local to that specific part of the town.
Commissioner Camish?
So, would there be multiple things sent in for each cabinet? And if so, who would then vote on each cabinet? Like, would there be more than one person that would put a design in per cabinet? Or would we just elect one person or one whatever for each cabinet? Like, how is that gonna work?
Yeah, all good, these are all good questions. This is the first step for us. Now, out of tonight, what I hope to get is a sense of how we should frame the request for artist proposals. And, you know, so we will, at a staff level, kind of figure out how to group the boxes, potential themes for the boxes, and then put it out there for artists to submit proposals. You would then see those, And then at that point, you could choose to refer one or more of them to a respective commission if you feel that it's specific or close enough to a facility where a commission might, where you'd want their input in addition to your own. But at that point, then the EDA board, we would ask you to select the artwork for each box. After you've got whatever public input you want for it.
Any other comments? Yeah.
Thank you. Just to clarify, so there's 10 boxes is what we're proposing. So it would depend on who submits artwork for that. One of the boxes, if we break them up by location or the theme, we may only receive one submission for one, but we may receive 5 for another category. So we won't know until we go through that process. But it's kind of wide open right now.
And this would be open to just residents? Like when you say artwork, are we talking like professional artwork, or are we talking anyone in the city?
I think we would open up to anyone who wants to submit. I don't think we'd have any bar that they need to clear. But it also may mean that we do get professional artists who aren't from here submitting things, because we don't want to exclude any opportunities. There might be some really fantastic art. And maybe they don't live in Crystal, but they live in a nearby community, or they've done work in Crystal. And I have a couple artists I can think of that have done murals. One is a Robbinsdale resident, the other is actually a Crystal resident. And they have done work in their respective cities and also the adjacent city and all over elsewhere. So, I mean, there might be, we won't know until we put it out there, but I wouldn't want to exclude anyone based on location of residency or whether or not they are professional artists. We'd want to keep it as open as possible and see what we get.
Yeah, I like the direction we're going. I do want us to be mindful of just the commission piece. Like, I would want to compensate these folks to some extent, and I don't want to lose sight of that could add up if we're paying, 10 different folks some dollar amount. Also, I want to keep in mind just for this commission that, I think we're kind of signing up for a reoccurring cost, even if it's every 5 to 10 years. But if we want to do more than 10, we're doing 10 this year, but if it's a huge success and we want to do more next year, we could do that. But then I also don't want in 5 years to all of these look awful, and then we just have a bunch of bad raps, So, I just want to be thoughtful of, okay, we're kind of signing up for a long-term investment. I think the investment dollars are reasonable. I don't want to lose sight of that. One other thing as we think about soliciting art, if we could somehow just encourage, cultural or ethnic kind of expression or representation. I think because of how diverse our community is, if we can see more more tangibly how diverse it is in different communities that are represented, via art, I'd want to try to promote that as well. Commissioner Adams?
The nice thing with these wraps, they're kind of a vinyl wrap. They can be removed and the condition can be returned back to the way they were. So we're not necessarily tied to replace every one that goes bad. In fact, I would hope that we would have staff kind of know when something is starting to look bad and just do that, or, just to make sure that our house is in order, sort of thing.
Any other comments? Yeah, Commissioner Budiszewski.
I just had one quick thought. Maybe the police department would like one of the wraps so we could work on getting our, don't speed, Yeah. Yeah, maybe one of the bigger cabinets or something like that. Maybe like a,
Or all of them, yeah.
How would you say, like a dummy police car or something like that? Maybe right here on 42nd.
Make it look like a speed camera, maybe.
All right, thank you.
Way too fast in big letters, I don't know.
If you can read this, you are too close.
We might have to submit one as a commission. This would be fun. Anything else, John, you'd want from this group?
On this item, no, I think I've
Okay.
exactly the direction I was hoping to get. Thank you
Okay,
all.
great. Next we'll move on to property status update.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was just on that one work program.
There's more, okay,
I have
we're
more
still on the work
slides, I am
program.
sorry.
Fantastic.
On the cabinet wraps, just so you know what these look like, and this proposal is only for the larger cabinets. Most of these have smaller cabinets next to them, so the artwork is gonna, the template, like the area that the artist can work off of, is gonna be a little different for each box, because some of them are partially covered, like this 42nd and Douglas one, with a small cabinet. And right now, we're just proposing to wrap the big ones. They're all kind of a standard size. But they're a smaller cabinet, so like in this case, there wouldn't be something obviously under this behind this small cabinet. It would just be this area here on that face that would be available for the artwork. So these are 3 of the 10, just to give you a sense of what they look like. And here's an example. I apologize for the blue hue of the photos I took. This was near dusk down in Edina. And I was in the shadow of the Chase Bank building there at 70th and France. But this is one that was installed, I think, at least a year ago. And there this was done to all the cabinets, not just the large one. Again, we would just do the large one. And this is, I don't know where the artwork came from or who did it, but I mean, I looked at it up close. This is Stratus. This is a Stratus product. They did this. You know, I've kind of picked away. I didn't try to pull it off or anything, but you know, like, is this really sticking to the box like it should? And does it look good up close, not just from a distance? And yes, I was impressed with the durability of the material and how it looks, not only from a distance, but also up close. So I thought you should see that since they're the vendor that we would propose to go with.
Commissioner Kaiser.
But how long have they been installed, do you know?
About a year, I think.
Oh, okay, you said that, I'm sorry. Got limited.
So, moving on to another potentially new thing is that entrance monument sign that I mentioned that we could put potentially at the northwest corner of 36th and the Highway 100 interchange. The idea here would be a vertically lit or an internally lit vertical sign, which would have a decorative stone base that it sits on. And originally I was thinking, let's just light the logo at the top, like a beacon. But if we're gonna be running power out there and having it internally lit anyway, it probably wouldn't be much more expensive to just, you know, backlight like a white plastic or whatever they use with the black letters front, so it's visible at night. Approximate total cost would be $35,000. So if we repurpose the awards that we had budgeted for the facade grants, we could potentially pay for something like this. We have a lot of work to do. We do have one sign company quote, which would easily fall under that $35,000, but then we still have to run the power, pay for a meter and all that fun. So, and of course, unforeseen things that we might run into with a very new thing that we haven't done. So that's why I kind of bumped that up to $35,000. Also, we would need MnDOT permission because this would actually be on their land, and I have no idea how that works. I just know that other cities have done things like this, so I'm presuming there's a permit process or something else. We were planning to wait and bring this to you in 2025. The idea was let's get the wraps done in '24 and then do the monument sign at this location in 2025, using kind of the same chunk of the budget, you know, wraps in 2024 and then this in 2025. But again, with not doing the facade grants, you could do both in 2024 if you wanted to. A caution though, we thought long and hard about where could we put these? If we wanted to do these at like every location, every entrance to Crystal, we really don't have spots for not only this vertical version, but if we were to do sort of a horizontal version, which creates other challenges as far as it's easier to vandalize and other things. But you know, there are visibility triangle issues at intersections. And we don't have right-of-way, so it wouldn't just be a matter of getting a permit from MnDOT or the county, it's actually private property, so we would need to have some kind of an easement agreement. You know, and in my head, it would be something like, we promise to maintain this little patch of ground if you give us a permanent easement to put this sign on it. Well, I don't know how many property owners are gonna agree to that, I guess they might. But we don't have right-of-way sitting out there open, ready for something like this at really any other entrance points to the city. So I think the way to think about this one is think of it as a prototype. Give this a try. It's a lot of money, but see if people like it, if it's distinctive, if it gives people that identity that Crystal has always had an issue with. Again, getting back to the history video with our crazy boundaries and the history that led to those, a lot of times people don't even know what city they're in. So if doing something like this, if it seems to work and help and give people more pride, this design anyway, this concept could be a template for things that get integrated into the Blue Line construction. If we wanted to do something around the interchange or the Bass Lake Road Station. Or there may be other opportunities that come up as sites near our boundaries get redeveloped. Could we do an entrance monument on that site as part of that redevelopment? So that's the way I would think of this, is if you want to proceed with it, it would be a prototype. And we wouldn't want people to get the idea that we're going to put these at every single entrance to Crystal, because at least not in the near term, because it's not possible. So the main question for all of you tonight is, of course, we want any comments or feedback you have, but the main question is, should we continue to work on this? And if so, 2024 or 2025 like we had originally been thinking?
Commissioner Idbo.
Thank you. I am a little concerned about this project. One is, I think there's two different concerns I have. One is, if we were to do a monument sign, the idea of kind of like a plastic-backed lit sign with a decorative stone base, to me, doesn't really speak to the level of kind of grandeur that cities try and create with a monument sign, right? Normally they're metal, stone, wood, kind of more materials that speak at a like a higher class kind of thing. I'm just thinking of a number of our neighbors in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Their monument signs, they tend to be a little bit more than just a business sign that's lit up with letters and the logo. So that's one concern. And the other thing is, I feel as though, as you just said, our borders are strange. We have a lot of different things kind of going on. If we wanted to really create identity and pride in the city, it might be better to work on some of the things that the facade grant was trying to, which is like working on our streetscapes and the experience of being in our commercial areas. And so I'd rather see that money either saved or worked into kind of softening or really what are really hard streetscapes that we have, at 42nd and Douglas, at 36th and Douglas, around our main shopping area too. I mean, I'm just thinking like, we have these planter boxes, right? But they don't change the streetscape. And so like, could that money go towards a grant to private landowners to actually, instead of just having asphalt everywhere, it maybe, softening it a little bit. And so that's my 2 cents there is, one, if we really want to go this monument way, I'd like to see different materials than illuminated plastic. And then two, I think we should maybe look at using the money to soften some of our really hard streetscapes in our business areas.
Commissioner Camish.
So with the lit area and then having to run electric and all that, which I assume would up the cost, I had reached out to last fall, I think, when I saw some in Richfield. Which I have a picture if anyone's interested, but have we done anything on, like, if we were gonna do the stone thing and it said Crystal without the lit area, have we done any pricing on something like that?
No, I think it would be roughly comparable, depending how much stone you do. The ones in, the Minneapolis Richfield border example ones, they were, because they weren't visible at night, really. You know, they sort of serve a different purpose. They're more neighborhood markers, I think. But they also do have a lot more stone. So this concept could be modified. In fact, originally I pictured it with kind of vertical stone on the corners and then the text in the kind of in the middle between these vertical bands of stone, and then the base itself also being stone. So I think if the general idea of doing this monument sign is appealing, we could modify the design based on your feedback to include more stone, or maybe not have the lighting. But the big difference between here and the Minneapolis Richfield examples is those were, like, if you're driving by, you see this pretty thing, but you can't really read it easily because it's more for pedestrian scale in terms of the text, even though the structure itself is visible as you drive. So the purpose of this sign would be really the audience are the drivers on 36 as they're traveling west into Crystal. But I think there's a way we could incorporate the design feedback, and I don't know exactly what it would do to the pricing, but you know, it isn't like an order of magnitude difference to have more stone and maybe have vertical bands of stone on either side of the word Crystal and have the logo at the top. Or other design comments that you may have. And if you want to think about this a little bit more and provide feedback later, that's fine. This is not something we have to rush. The wraps we do kind of want to move forward on, and we're going to work on that right away. But for this, I think we could modify the design based on your comments. I think the bigger question tonight is this something you want us to pursue this year? Or would you rather us kind of keep our powder dry as far as that potentially $40,000 of funds to be repurposed and have a broader conversation about, okay, what else could we spend that money on instead of the facade grants that would maybe be more consistent or otherwise align with the EDA's goals? So, yeah, I guess that's the first question. Should we even move forward with this now, or do you want to rethink that?
For reference, John, I mean, how large would this sign, for example, be? Like, how tall?
Approximately 8 to 10 feet tall, and then approximately 2 feet in cross-section looking down square.
Okay,
1.5 maybe. Yeah, something like
that's
that.
helpful. Okay. Commissioner Camus.
Have we looked, and maybe this is extremely expensive, I don't know, but any of, like, something over the overpasses, something that says Crystal, like I've seen it, I think Maple Grove maybe has things, it's got, like a maple leaf, and it says, I think Maple Grove, or maybe it's just got the maple leaves. Is there something, have we looked into doing something like that over the overpasses by like 100?
So, yes, certainly, those were done as part of that project, but all of them are actually in Robbinsdale.
Oh.
They're actually technically in Robbinsdale. The boundary doesn't show up on this aerial, but basically the right-hand side of the aerial photo is the boundary. And then it kicks over just south of the aerial photo and lines up with the extended center line of 36th Avenue east of 100. So the bridge structure is actually completely in Robbinsdale. Yeah, so again, our borders. So things that everyone thinks of as being in Crystal, some of them aren't, and that's part of the challenge. Is we can't. We actually looked at the southeast quadrant of the interchange, and that would actually be in Robbinsdale. So this seemed like a more logical spot. Like I said, every other location we've looked at, there's some challenge with it. in addition to these challenges.
Commissioner Kaiser?
So this would be on the northeast corner, like
Northwest.
northwest?
Yeah. The median we tore out last year, that was an EDA, a new EDA initiative last year. We put those trees in. That's right here. So it would be just across the westbound lanes of 36 on the north side of 36.
John, have we considered, could we put something in the median? You know, a lower horizontal sign on the median there?
We're certainly open to that. It's just then we're boring power under a road.
Oh, yeah.
We can certainly do it. I'm sure there's a way to do it. It just, the additional costs start to add up. But that doesn't mean we don't want to do it right. So if you'd rather do a horizontal sign in the median, we certainly could look at that. We'd still need MnDOT permission. But there should be space there to do that.
So I personally really like the idea of some kind of monument. It does seem expensive, so that is what's giving me pause. If possible, if we could maybe see some examples of other cities, you know, across the country of, hey, here's maybe a $10,000 option, which I'm sure would be very basic, no light. Here's a $20,000 option. Here's a we're looking at it. Well, it'd actually be nice to see what this $35 option would actually look like, you know, if some other city has done that. So that would be helpful, but I would probably lean towards, you know, if there's a nice $20,000 option with no light. But I don't know. I want to do it right as well. So, but I have some angst around the price right now. Commissioner Kamish?
My other concern, if we did do a monument, would be to pick materials that maybe wouldn't be easily vandalized. Like, I feel like plastic would maybe be easily busted, broken, I don't know. My thoughts.
Commissioner Cummings?
I like the idea. I think it'd be great if it was at every, entrance to the city, but, with the cost, I don't know if that's possible. I would say keep working on it and come back with some more ideas, see what else was out there, what other cities do. But I also think maybe this would be better spent on facade improvements in other parts of the city. So I'm kind of seeing both on that one. So maybe to come back and kind of see where we're at. But it'd be great to have every entrance in the city have something similar or something like this to greet people as they come.
Commissioners, one option is if where you end up is this isn't, let's not do this right now, let's do something else. The Blue Line project will provide an opportunity to come up with a new template at that location of a sort of a welcome to Crystal identifying feature, whether it's included under the, in the concrete of the bridges, for example. Those bridges completely will be in crystal, so we will be able to incorporate that into the detailed design when the time comes. Or if we wanted to do monuments or something else on Bass Lake Road, that area will be ripe for that type of branding. If you ultimately decide not to proceed with this. But what I'm hearing tonight, it sounds like we should continue working on it and try to bring you more information maybe later this year, but not try to get something done in 2024. Is that something that you're all comfortable with?
Yep.
I like that.
Commissioner Idbo?
Yeah, and just, I might be way off base here, but I think one thing that you had mentioned at a previous EDA meeting was expanding some of the facade grant improvements with city funds. And I would be curious and kind of looking at some of that further instead of just saying, oh, well, we got 25 grand from the county. Well, we'll just keep going down that road. I think some of these facade grant improvements have been really powerful and really good use of funds. And it would be interesting to see if we can expand it beyond what the county is doing with those funds as well. I'm just thinking it could be a much bigger impact. When I'm thinking of areas that have impact, it's our commercial zones. It's not necessarily 36 and 100. Most of our city's population lives north of that. And I think that it would be a much bigger impact to do something with that.
So with that excellent point, I think we had it in the budget for 40,000 for facade grants above and beyond whatever we were going to get from the county. That's what we went into this year with the adopted budget as. So, I mean, if that is the direction, I mean, that is sort of the direction of the EDA as it stands today, based on the budget you adopted. So we can just run with that and proceed with the facade grants. And the customer, so to speak, doesn't need to know that, well, if you're in one of these 3 areas on the screen, the money comes from this county grant. If you're not, then it comes from somewhere else. So that is another option that staff could work on, is just come up with a proposal for the facade grant program and for an expanded geographic reach to use the funds that you've already budgeted for.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would be curious in seeing that. That's exactly it. And then also beyond just building facade, I think another thing that would be interesting is also some of the landscaping and hardscaping of a lot of our business district as well. And so expanding not just the geography, but also maybe a little bit of scope. So, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Kaiser.
Thank you. Have there been any people that applied for these grants we didn't have the funds for? No?
No.
Okay.
Personally, so if we want to double down on these facade grants, we've talked about this, but for the B&R auto repair, I mean, they replace windows and put a sidewalk in, like those, and we talked about this, those things are not, I mean, it's like a nice building, but that does not leave a mark, I don't think, on our city like a nice inviting sign, if you will. And so I think there are examples of how the facade grant has been used well. I think if we expand the scope, I mean, there's more we can do with it. And also, if we do more with it, I'd want to be, as we talked about in the past, more explicit with what those dollars can be used for. I do not think they should be used for windows. So I think in my head, it's like a sign actually is like a pretty meaningful, like, hey, welcome to Crystal. I don't know, it kind of sets the tone. And maybe most people live north, but I, go on that exit all the time, and that would be like a nice welcoming thing. So at the end of the day, I want to do all of the things, so that we can, increase just kind of the look of our city. So I'm not really providing much direction. I think we could explore, okay, what would kind of an enhanced or expanded facade program look like? And also, personally, I would like to see a few more options for the sign at different price levels, and I'd like to see that again sometime this year. That's just where I'm at. Commissioner Adams?
I don't know if you saw on the video we watched earlier with the Historical Society, there was a crystal ball. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but this design kind of emulates the idea of a crystal ball. It was up on a tower. It was in the vertical, and the star could be like the crystal ball on top. I think there's an opportunity of design in that realm to kind of incorporate some of that history potentially. Just an idea.
So, Mr. President, based on what I'm hearing from all of you, how about this? How about if, as part of the work program that we present to you on the 19th of March, we propose modified facade grant program guidelines, modified geographic reach for eligibility. I have no idea what that all looks like yet. I have to dig into it, but that's why we're having a discussion tonight, because we have 4 weeks or so. And present that as far as what to do with the funds you've already budgeted for 2024. And then also, this will shift to later in the year out of necessity, but we will continue to work on the entrance monument concept, especially at 36th and 100. Gather more information based on the comments tonight. And then later this year, you can decide what to include in your 2025 or even 2026 EDA budget if you want to proceed with something like that. We'll also know more about the Blue Line project and opportunities that may appear there, and that may influence the design that you want to do. So does that sound consistent with what, it sounds to me like that's what would be the best fit for what you all are saying tonight.
Commissioner Kamish?
I feel like we should have a discussion about kind of our vision, maybe. I feel like we don't really have a vision. We have beautification. Like, when I think of making it more welcoming, I guess me personally, and I know this would be a large scale, but I think of like the Target area and over by Becker Park and those businesses, making it more of a walkability, like so places where people would want to, could maybe walk, especially since we're having the park and ride right there coming up, or people coming off the light rail, but having it more of like the whole area, like a park-like feel, so people can walk and loiter, and it just feels more homey. And, you know, there's not really, I mean, we've got Starbucks right there. I forgot about Starbucks, but you know, just having little things where people can sit and have coffee or something like that. That's how I feel when I think of making it more homey. I just feel like that whole area needs to be more, I don't know, just more of a, like I want to loiter here feel, like loiter on foot, not in vehicle, obviously.
Yeah, point well taken, and this is not really related to the EDA work program, but it's something as a council that you're gonna see probably in a couple months is, the county is paying for kind of a supplement to the station area plan update that will get into specific infrastructure improvements and separating out what's part of the anticipated part of the light rail project versus additional things that would help connect people to and around the station, and especially pedestrian facilities and things like that. So that will, to some extent, address what you're talking about, or at least will be a starting point. The part of the challenge with our retail area is the right-of-way in most places is filled. You know, you get your road, turn lanes, maybe a little bit of boulevard and sidewalk, in some cases no boulevard. And it's, a lot of it is old county road, right? And the county's not gonna do anything. You know, that would actually, short of reconstructing these roads, we're really limited in what we can do. But that said, maybe through the facade program, or we can do some spot improvements to try to, it may be as simple as identify places where things are falling apart and they just need to be replaced, and they'll look better just from that. And that gets more into public works, but that whole commercial area is, you know, vintage 1960 whatever, and with maybe some road upgrades in the 70s or 80s, but really we're sort of stuck with that street infrastructure in those county roads the way they are. So what we're doing, I mean, you're absolutely right, we're sort of tweaking all this, right? We're trying to make little fixes here and there to try to change the trajectory. I think definitely a bigger discussion by the council about your vision is appropriate, to decide, you know, how much do we want to make it a priority to try to undo what was done, you know, half a century ago, and try to make it better and more appealing to people today. But that's a whole different scale than the kind of stuff that I'm talking about here. I recognize that. I'm talking in circles, I think, but excuse me. But there are small-scale things that we could do to maybe move the needle a little bit, such as using the facade program to focus on landscaping and other things that are right out by the street. So I have a few weeks to try to put something together.
Commissioner Idbo?
I just would like to, John, thank you for that perspective. I think it's at least to me, and maybe it's since I'm online, it came across a little depressing. You know, it's like we're stuck with these roads. It's what it is. But you know, I think one thing, you know, having grown up in this area, one perspective to keep in mind is like it might take 20, 30 years, but you know, change can happen on county roads. Change can happen in a positive way for communities. I mean, and I think an example, very expensive one, but you know, nonetheless, it was planned. It took decades of effort. But if you look at what Douglas in Golden Valley is today, from Sandburg Middle School all the way down to 55, I mean, that effort was something that the city had strategically planned for a very long time. And through political will and lots of money, and working with a lot of the property owners there, it is what it is today. And it certainly wasn't like that. That was like the worst part of Golden Valley. And that's also where I grew up. I mean, you know, 20 some years ago. So there's change can happen and it can be positive. It just takes a lot of time and a lot of will.
Other comments? All right, what else for the work program?
I think that was the last thing I had. Well, I really appreciate the discussion tonight, and I have some work to do before the 19th of March, so.
Thanks, John. With that, we'll move to a property status update.
So I think one of the properties we keep getting asked about is the former Dairy Queen on Bass Lake Road at Jersey. And we still don't have any building plans, but the news is they are planning to submit within the next week or two. So once those plans hit City Hall, we'll be able to let you know who they are. But again, we do know that it is another similar food type user, not necessarily the same food, but the same type of company or business as the Dairy Queen. That's all I know. So we'll let you know as soon as we do. Wine Thief and Ale Jail, their grand opening is on Friday at 11 o'clock and for 11 a.m. And the ribbon cutting will be around 10:45 Friday morning. So hopefully that many of you will be able to be there if you can. I'm sure they would appreciate that. And the city did play a significant role in helping that building at 36th and Douglas being renovated in terms of both the facade grant, but also more significantly, the fire sprinkler financing. I mean, they added on to the building by 50%, and they also completely renovated the building. So it's like new, and I think you'll be amazed when you see it up close.
Any questions?
I just have a quick comment. I mean, I've been by that building and the parking layout, the handicap ramp, all that looks great. So I think they've done, great service to our city with that building. So thank you to them for that. So obviously we were part of that too. Can't wait.
All right. Any other business? Yeah, Tracy.
Are we able to discuss anything? No? Okay. Never mind.
Not right now.
Okay.
All right, with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
What?
Did you hear that? Do we have a second? Tracy's gonna second.
I will second.
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Oh, please.
Okay.
Get a roll call?
for this?
Yes, you will. And just so happens, Commissioner Budashevsky.
Nay.
I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Cummings.
Aye.
Commissioner Adams.
Aye.
Commissioner Kamish.
Aye.
Commissioner Kaiser.
Aye.
Commissioner Otis Rosen.
Aye.
Commissioner Idbo.
All right.
With that, we are adjourned.
Life is good.
Are you gonna be okay?
All right.
What?
You gonna be okay?
I am always.
Does anybody need a minute or should we go on?